Today on episode 20, I speak to Mark Castle, who is the CEO of the Field Studies Council, one of the leading conservation educational organizations around the world. Welcome, Mark. It's a pleasure to have you on our podcast here.
It's a pleasure to be here, and I suppose, can I start by saying well done for all the work that you're doing. I had a good look through the website, and I had a look at some of the blogs, and there's some very interesting topics on your blogs, which I would certainly recommend. I enjoy reading through them.
Thanks for those kind words. So my first question is, what is the idea behind the Field Studies Council, and what is your long-term vision for the organization?
Yeah, okay. Well, it's interesting enough. It's our 80th anniversary this year. We were started in 1943 in a bombed out natural history museum, right in the in the middle of the Second World War. And essentially, what the founders were interested in at that time, they could see that access to the countryside and access to knowledge of the environment was something that was really under pressure for a whole range of reasons, but the war being one of them. And so at that time, they applied to set up the Field Studies Council. The Field Studies Council at that time and now was essentially about creating the opportunities through environmental education courses and leaflets and publications and so on that would provide knowledge for the public. And at that time, it was very much supported by the government and started off again very much in harmony with the educational system. So that was when we started, and that was what we did. And so fundamentally, it's about education courses delivered through well-equipped, well-maintained field centres. We have field centres around the country. And the sort of thing that unifies it all together is the knowledge of field studies and that will in turn care for the environment. So that's what we were about when we first started off. What is the long-term vision now? Well, we see this as being a journey. And what we are looking for is to inspire everyone. And so that's big. We're looking for everyone. Firstly, to be curious. And we think that's a really important step. You'll know probably better than me that an awful lot of people's first exposure often to the interest in environment is what they see on the TV through, David Attenborough's work and so on. And what we want to do is to try to take that curiosity and move it to the next stage. And so what we want is to get people outdoors to do that themselves. And so the next stage on for us is about making them more knowledgeable, because we very firmly believe that if you know more about the environment, it will inspire you to move to the next stage, which is being passionate about the environment. Now, I think our view is that to really get to the point where you're passionate about the environment to the extent that you really will reach that point of wanting to care for it, you need to be immersed in it, because you only really understand the awe-inspiring aspects of the environment by having that opportunity. And so we want to take people on the journey. Some will will stop at curiosity, but others might go all the way to being as interested as you are and being really passionate about it. So that's what we want to try to do, is to inspire everyone to be curious, knowledgeable, passionate, and caring about the environment.
The Field Studies Council's main areas of work is increasing youth engagement. So what exactly are you doing at FSC to increase youth engagement?
Okay, if I start with youth engagement first, I mean, as I said, we're very clear that there's no substitute for actual hands-on experiences, and some of the most fun times I've had with the Field Studies Council is when I'm able to join groups of young people who have never had the opportunity to get outdoors, to put a pair of Wellingtons on, to stand in a river, measuring it, get their feet wet, or to look at moths and moth traps and so on. And so that's a really important part of it, is the hands-on experience. And so a lot of what we do is embedded within the curriculum. So what we're looking at doing is working with schools and those who might be involved in the geography field work parts of the geography curriculum, or biology, or whatever, and working with them when they come to do courses with us. The challenge with that is we've seen, particularly as a result of the pandemic, a real decline in field work at schools, and so clearly it was under a great deal of strain through the pandemic, and so that decline has affected the number of people that come. At one time, people used to come for 5 days at a time, and that really is quite rare now for a whole number of reasons. So the first one, in terms of youth, is working with schools, because what we want to do is to try to ensure that we are able to get those pupils, learners who are at schools, to get that wow moment of actually seeing what's going on. We don't only do that in our field centres. We also have a thing we call outreach, where we actually go to schools, and we'll work with schools and show the pupils and teachers what is in their school playground, in their backyard, so to speak. And we also have a number of locations where people will go for the day and they don't stay overnight, and they will join us there. So it's very much about trying to engage through the school programs. The other things that we do is work with other partners. We've a number of different projects that we've been involved in the past, working with faith groups, working with groups such as Girl Guiding, Scouts, and so on, again, to engage that way. And we run a number of things for individuals too. We use Duke of Edinburgh's award scheme. So we really do believe that trying to engage with young people is absolutely fundamental, and we do all that we can to try to do that. One other thing, if I may, just to sort of finish this off, is we've also invested a lot in the digital experience, because one of the things we found during the pandemic was people didn't have access, but we wanted to keep that going. And so we ran a program called Fieldwork Live during that time. We had over 450,000 people who joined us in that. And again, that was another way of connecting people to nature.
That leads to my next question. Do you think there's a growing disconnect between the youth and nature? And if so, why?
Yeah, I think there is a disconnect, and I suppose there's a whole number of reasons for that happening. I think probably the first thing is the reduced number of opportunities to participate in nature as part of every day. And I've talked about at school, the fact that fieldwork opportunities have reduced as part of the school curriculum. That's had an impact. Other things that relate to that is the cost of living. The ability to actually go and participate in things has been affected by that. So that has an impact too. I suppose one of the others which we've found is that the people who would have guided young people who were confident about the outdoors themselves and would have exposed them, if you like, to all that nature has to offer, those skills are reducing too. It's very difficult for teachers to go through all the health and safety that they've got to do to get people out. And also often they themselves are maybe not as confident about getting out into the environment from a health and safety point of view, but also their knowledge of the environment, of the flora and fauna and so on. And so one of the other things that we do is work to help teachers to be better prepared to do that. The other, I suppose, is parents. Again, we need parents to be actively wanting to create the opportunities, and we do what we can there to help. Now, that could be subsidizing courses and so on to try to help. the other area, of course, that has had a big impact is, I suppose, the increasing urbanization of our society. More and more people live in urban areas, fewer live in rural areas, and so what we've got to try to do is to make people who live in urban areas aware that actually there is a tremendous amount of nature around them. They just have to I think, be made aware of what's there, again, to try to spark that curiosity.
During COVID has changed the role of nature in everyone's lives.
Yeah, I think it did. I talked earlier on about the impact of the lockdown, and that, you know, people just could not get out, and so we put on a digital program, Fieldwork Live, during that time to try to reach people. Our tutors went online and found that by doing that, they really were able to engage, as you know, through chats and so on online. We were able to do quite a lot. So we tried to break through, but inevitably, there was a whole cohort of people who didn't get the opportunity to go out over that time. And actually, I mean, one of the things that a teacher I spoke to recently said that they had found that the whole COVID period made her students more risk averse. They were less confident at getting out into the environment because they had been, I suppose, locked at home for a period and were concerned about it. And of course, other things like bird flu and so on don't help. So, yeah, I think COVID did have an impact. It restricted access for a period. Not everyone was able to go out and explore nature in their back garden, because not everyone has back gardens like that. And so I think it did have an impact, sadly.
Could you just elaborate a bit on some of FSC's wildlife courses?
Yeah, I can. Well, we have 130 different courses available, both online and at 25 locations around the UK. That was in 2022, and we're trying to produce more. They're very varied. We try to keep the cost down and try to keep the courses short so that learners can pace themselves and get into more depth as they want. Last year in 2022, we had 8,000 learners on the courses, and the courses, as I said, designed very much as to take people on that journey. So they shouldn't be put off by the thought that, you know, suddenly they'll be overfaced by something on the courses. They're designed with learners in mind to try to take them on that journey. They vary. We've people who just want to learn for their own benefit, but we've also professional courses that we run for people that might want to do it as part of their career. So broad range of courses. We offer a lot of discounts for young people because we're very interested in young people participating. And we also subsidize whole groups coming where we can. The other thing I think is probably worth making you aware of is our wildlife guide. So even if people can't come on one of our courses, by going onto our physical courses, by going online, they can join, but also they can get one of our wildlife ID guides, which will help them to identify and learn more about what's in their immediate environment.
Now, moving on more towards FSC's efforts for youth engagement. So could you just talk a bit about the Youth Darwin Scholarship?
Yeah, I can. So the Young Darwin Scholarship, something we run every year, and the purpose of the scholarship is to train and mentor those who are particularly interested in the environment. It's funded by donations, and so what we try to do is to encourage members and those who are using our facility to donate so that we can help Young Darwin scholars. And once they have been a Young Darwin scholar, we will help them on the journey, but we will also keep in touch with them through that period. So it's highly competitive. It's always oversubscribed, but anyone who's interested in really following their dream of having a life that is more in tune with the environment, then I would definitely recommend it.
The FSC's Youth Council has also been very successful. What are your reflections on the entire Youth Council, especially for the last cohort?
Well, the Youth Council is something that I was very keen on getting going, because many of our customers, the vast majority of our customers actually are young people, often coming through schools, but still it's young people who are coming. And firstly, I want to make sure that what we are providing is what they want. Is it doing the sort of things that they want to do? The other part of that then is trying to make sure that not only are we doing what they want, but we're really tuned in to their concerns and their aspirations for the future. And so the purpose behind the Youth Council, and they're going to be joining us when we have all our trustees together in a few weeks' time for our executive weekend, is to give us some insight so that from a strategic perspective, we can plan ahead and make sure that the sort of things that they think are important, we are in tune with and we are planning for. So I'm very impressed with the engagement we have from our Youth Council members. I spoke to them all recently and did a sort of question and answer session with them, and I found that really interesting and valuable for me. But also what I'm keen to do is to try to increase the involvement more, and to, as far as possible, try to ensure that we really are in tune with what young people are looking for, and we really are delivering what young people want.
So beyond the initiatives we spoke about, what have been some of FSC's most successful and prominent projects?
Well, I think just before I leave that, there are other things that we do just for young people more than just the scholarships. So we do placements, and so annually we have higher education placements for those who might want to join, and we also do grants for schools. So if someone is listening to this who is at school and would like to come but finds that the cost might be prohibitive, speak to their teacher or the correct person at school and ask them to look for our grants program, because we do have them and we do quite a lot there. So turning to I think the one I'd probably wanted to raise most was the BioLinks program, which was funded by the Lottery Heritage Fund, and it just finished at the end of last year. And we had our final event in January, just to wind it up. Now, I think what was really good about it was a 5-year project. There were over 6,000 people who joined the courses physically, and nearly 17,000 online. And what was really interesting about it is it focused very much on, I suppose, some of the creatures that are the most unloved often by people. So it focused in on spiders, on millipedes, and slugs, because that's the area that we felt there was not enough knowledge, and we wanted to increase the knowledge there. So it was about training people in biological recording, focusing in on those particular species, and I believe was really successful in shining a light in areas that otherwise wouldn't. What we have subsequently done is we've continued with that, and although it was funded by the Heritage Fund up until last year, we've kept the team on, and we are continuing to do the same work through our biodiversity team. So we will be continuing to do that as part of the legacy of the project. The other one, I think, which some people listening to this may have participated in, was a thing called Generation Green. That was it was funded by Department for the Environment and Rural Affairs, DEFRA, and we did it as part of a joint program with National Trust, Girl Guides, Scouts, National Parks and Outward Bound. That, again, I think was another good project. 1,000 young people given the opportunity to go through the courses, and nearly 1,000 again came to visit our location. So another good program, I think. And I suppose the final one probably that I would talk about was I think as part of the Forgotten Places, we're doing a thing called, we're working with a charity called Trees for Cities. And that, I think, is another really interesting one. It's expanding into Glasgow and Bradford, and we're looking for other locations to work there. So a number of different things going on, and there are far more than these, but they're just...
Now, moving on to my final question for you. So what has been your biggest learning in your conservation career?
Well, do you know, the biggest one, I think, for me was not to take for granted that everyone has had the same opportunities as I have. I, as a young person, was brought up in a farming environment. I was very involved in nature and the environment right from my earliest days. And so it was only later on that when I grew up that I realized that not everyone had the same opportunities as I'd had to just get outdoors, to learn about flora and fauna, be guided by people who really did know what they were talking about, who inspired me. And so what I'm keen to try to do is to try to replicate. So for people who don't have the opportunities, to try to give them the opportunities that I had. And so I think that's my biggest learning point, is that not everyone has the opportunities, and that's sad, and it's something that we really need to try to change if we can.
Thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure speaking to you.
It's a pleasure, and thanks very much for all the work that you're doing.